March 16, 2020. I actually fell asleep in my clothes, jewelry and everything. Just so tired, exhausted, and I just allowed myself to sleep. Slept with the light on in my face and everything. And I began to dream, and I had two dreams. One dream was about Colin, and it's like I went to his job to see him. It was just like in the old days, and he was so happy to see me. But I don't remember anything to do with hearing his voice or him saying anything to me. I just felt like I was with him in the higher planes. And it's like he's going through a dark mini night of the soul or something. Just something felt dark around him. Something felt like sadness, depression. I don't know. That's how it felt to me. Like he was disconnected. And it's like it's almost like my angelic presence was with him wherever he was in thoughts, And I felt like in the dream state, I was picking up on his thoughts about me and having memories of me when I did visit him. And that's the feeling I get, that he was having memories about the days when I would come and visit him at his job, and he's having thoughts about how I made him feel alive and happy, no matter how simple it may have been. And I was picking up on it in the dream space. So the next thing I dreamt, I was back at St. Lawrence, where I grew up in the Bronx. And I was with my mom. And I dreamt that she was feeling stressed out, and I came to found out that she said she had something to tell me. And I was like, what do you have to tell me? I was like, what could it be? And it's like I was in a whole different energy frequency with thoughts. In other words, even though I don't have a job, but I'm working for myself, I haven't really put as much energy into any work whatsoever. I think it's going on a month now. I'm in such a different vibration. Like, I'm not stressed over readings. It's just so different. So I dreamt that she was like sad, and I was like, well, just tell me what's going on. And it's like we were in the car in her. It's like I was in her car and she was driving. It's like we were on our way to drive to go to work, like how we used to work together at Harlem Hospital. And I dreamt that she looked at me and said that she got laid off and she doesn't know what she's going to do because, the mortgage has to be paid, and how is she going to pay, and, stuff like that. And she said she wanted to tell me, she didn't want to keep it from me. It's so weird to have a dream like that. It's like we were literally interacting with each other, just like how we did when she was here in the physical realm. And it was like as if it was still happening. So I kind of feel like, my mother is a representation of the old fears that exist, in some family lineages, where, we're hanging on to the old ways of how we manifest and, pay our bills and this and that. For me, I'm in a space of, I may not have done any type of spiritual work. I may not have done any readings as much. I may not have, none of that. And yet still I know that I'm manifesting. I know that I'm being taken care of. I know that the all there is divine is assisting me, even though I don't know where it's coming from. And it doesn't matter. It's none of my business. I am in a co-creative space. And so I feel like in the dream, I even felt like I was not even felt like I was comforting my mother. And I told her, I said, everything's going to work out. I said, even though I may not, it may not be a comfortable feeling as far as, how are things going to unfold with us to be able to, have a place to live and so forth. And I told her, I said, well, it looks like we're probably going to have to end up moving anyway, because I told her I felt like as if that we were being guided by spirit to move from that house and be in a different location. So it's just very interesting to see how things play out in vibration and on the higher planes, when you're really out of the way. And we don't know what is within the subconscious mind, because I'm still connected to my mom, even though she's not here in the physical realm. And I haven't had a dream about her in a long time. And I haven't had a dream about Colin in a long time. So it's like I'm filtering through, and my, and it's like my soul is sifting through all of the thoughts and feelings and how I'm connected, to my divine masculine, and how I'm connected to my mom. And it's interesting because my mom and Colin, who's my divine masculine as well, they're similar in their quiet natured. And I always used to tell Colin that he reminds me of my mom. I used to always say that. So it makes me feel like versions of myself is showing up in the elements of Colin and my mom, but in two different ways, and it's centered around change. That's the one thing that's a common element here with these two dreams. It's an element of change. It's an element of letting go of the past. I feel like Colin is working through stuff emotionally with letting go of the past and forgiveness. I keep hearing forgiveness, forgiving himself, trusting his inner knowing more than ever. It's like all these old realities are just collapsing and collapsing and collapsing. It's just so much things that are shifting around us so rapidly. And it's like, even if you think you can catch up to the next part of yourself that's shifting, then another aspect of yourself that's connected to your soul is also shifting. And it's just breaking apart in pieces and fragments. And then as we're releasing those old fragmented parts of ourselves that no longer serve us, then the parts of ourselves that knows what the truth is, because there's a much freer energy, it just feels lighter. It feels lighter, and that's how I can interpret this. So my mom, who's on the other side now, she's also releasing with me at the same time, because we're still interconnected with the old ways of how we produce and manifest. And she like in the dream, I even saw myself back at the job at Harlem, and I was in this room, and when I was in the room, there was a younger generation of Black people that were in the room. So I'm dreaming again about Black people. And so to me, it's like this new reality. The new reality is starting to form, is starting to take form. And it's like the version um, of how we do things new is starting to take precedence. And so anything that exists in the past is starting to be retired, as one would say. What if it's not retired? It's let go. If it's not let go, um, it's like it's just it. It's to go. It's not no longer existing. And so many of us are going to have to go through more stages of letting go, or being fired, or told that your services are no longer needed, because it's time for the new earth to exist. And so coming up this week, Saturn moves into Aquarius, and it represents the dawning of the new age. It's already here. It's just like when 2020, I felt 2020 coming in from last year of June. I said it's already here. It doesn't have to be necessarily tied to the physical calendar date, like saying, hey, today's, like how I said, today's March 16th. So it's like the energy of the new age of Aquarius is already here. I never felt like as if, oh, it's coming up in the next 2 years and stuff. No, it's starting to take precedence. You can feel shift. You could feel, like, for those who are really tuned in to 5D and above, you can feel the shift. You can feel and know that something is moving faster, and everything is like what is to be sped up. And I know there's people who are panicking about changes, even to do it 5G. And every time I feel into it, I said, a lot of things to do with data stuff that we use that carries frequency, I'm in awareness of it. I don't keep electronic stuff around me as much as I can, because I know there is a frequency and a vibration that comes with it. But here's the thing, is that what spirit shows me is that everything that is upgrading, our bodies are also upgrading to match that vibration. We cannot slow down at all what is being developed and what is being created. We cannot. And it's either you piss on the pot or you get off the pot. I guess that's the way it's worded. So in other words, it's either you adapt to the higher vibrations that are coming in and how it shows up. That's why certain machines and electronical stuff that from the 80s and 70s cannot last. So same thing to do with the physical body. The physical body is going to be transforming to adapt to the higher frequencies. But in the meantime, until you are feeling as if you're coming into a balance with all of this, it's going to cause maybe some type of pain, and you can attract something that can counteract it because it's not ready. So that's why we have to always be open to allowing ourselves to be ready, and always apply wisdom, always applying wisdom with what is shifting around you, and paying attention to everything that your soul is either saying or leading you to, so that way without panicking, and that you apply wisdom, because the difference in this is where you apply yourself in consciousness, because that's what happened during the time of Atlantis, is that there were some who were at certain levels of consciousness, and there were some who understood and knew the dynamic and the depth of the higher frequency and the magic that it brings. And also with things being faster and feeling lighter and golden. But then, of course, when you're in the lower vibration, if you're in 3D or lower in consciousness, then the elements of what's ascended can go against you and affect you, because you're not ready to receive and to understand it. So therefore, it'll start to destroy you. So this is why it's important to always be as elevated as possible, to always be in a higher knowing and a higher application of understanding. Or even if something seems and appears as if it's one way today, that you're open to the fact that it can change tomorrow, because this is where Spirit wants us to be. The Holy Spirit wants us to be at a place where we're open to change at all times, and that each time that we move and shift through another dynamic aspect of self and the element of self, as we're connecting to these higher grids, that you are open and okay to it, and not attached to everything that's showing up in your reality, because it's ever moving and changing at milliseconds. So that's how I'm interpreting this whole, entire aspect of the dream to do with my mom anyway, per se. So I definitely feel like I'm out of that energy and neighborhood of where I grew up at St. Lawrence, because I always refer to, whenever I'm at St. Lawrence, there's something that's reflecting back to my childhood. It's reflecting back to an old age and era. And it's interesting because last night I was watching Saturday Night Fever. Now, it's so funny how that movie was so prevalent, so popular. And, in 77, I was actually 10. And I never watched the movie, but I definitely was aware of the music, the Bee Gees, John Travolta. I was aware. And I just don't remember. I never remembered. So I decided to watch the movie, and I wanted to dance, and I love the music. So, but what's interesting is that while watching the movie, I didn't realize, everything's on purpose at the timing. So I didn't realize the way women were treated was so degrading in that movie. Very degrading. It disturbed me. It was very disturbing. But again, it had to do with where the females placed their own honor in themselves. And one of the key elements, too, of the movie was the fact that the woman that he'd end up dancing with, she said she wanted to be friends with him. And she said, can't I just be friends with you as even though I'm a girl? Because it's always a dynamic that if you're friends with a man or, or stuff like that, then it must mean that there's sex involved, or you got to have sex and this and that. And this is where a lot of the distortions took place. And then the guy who committed suicide, practically committed suicide, fell off the bridge. he was under a lot of pressure because he got the girl pregnant and everything that was forced on people to create these marriages that were not based on true love, and having sex that's not based on true love. They were having sex in the back of the car, and there was just no honor in it with anyone, with anything, especially with females. So it's like I was supposed to see all of that, and I'm like, ooh, it just makes, when you're like in this higher place of consciousness, and it doesn't even matter whether anybody says, oh, you think you're better than me, whatever, like, shut up. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the fact that the way how we think, the way how we operate, the way that we connect to one another, it's changed. It's changed already. It's changed. It's that old world, that old system is completely breaking down. It is dismantling completely, completely becoming dismantled. So either way, I see this new earth, new world, new era emerging. It's like we're really literally giving birth to a new humanity, and it is flowing through the element of the goddess, Christ consciousness, and the goddess that's merged together, because she's merged with spirit. It's like I could feel myself merge with spirit. I'm merged with spirit so much that I am seeing and feeling people ahead of time before I hear something to do with them. It's like I'm connected so much and connected and intertwined with spirit so much that I feel things in spirit even before it physically happens, because it's an element of matter that you can't see, but I can feel it. And it's like as soon as I start talking about someone, something comes up to do with that person, because that is how the connection is just flowing. And when you're married to spirit in this way, you don't worry about anything. You're just at peace. That's what it feels like, a peace that comes over me. So this is what I'm getting from all of this today, March 16, 2020. And so it is. It is now 2:03 p.m. on March 16, 2020. I am now recording another dream I had, which I had a feeling I was going to go back to sleep and dream again. This time I dreamt that it's like I was back at Oak Ridge Court in Pomona, but it was extended. So it's like I was on a huge farm-like setting. It was a huge property, but it was still linked to Oak Ridge Court. And it feels kind of similar to the other dreams I had, that I brought everyone together. I brought, church people together. I brought people who are more saying, I'm on a spiritual path, and people of all races, cultures. And so this was a similar thing. But it started out where I ended up picking up my friend Sonia, which I haven't spoken to her in a very, very, very long time. And her birthday is June 12th. So I dreamt that this was centered around the time of her birthday. So I kind of feel like Spirit's giving me a date with this of June 12th. I don't even know what's happening as far as cosmically that date, but she was around me. I already had made breakfast to eat, and so I ended up inviting her over. It also felt like I was at a combination of St. Lawrence as well, as I go into the dream. So I went to try to make breakfast for her, but I kept getting distracted, and then more people kept coming and more people kept coming. So it's like as if I was planning just to start out making the breakfast for her, and the next thing you know, it ended up turning into a party. My dad was there, and then next thing you know, other people was bringing their own types of foods, and it was healthy, lovely, delicious looking, tasting food, because I was actually eating some of the food, but I was eating like different portions of food. Next thing you know, Michael Blackson shows up, and I looked at him and I was like, and he was like happy, and he was always in his joking, playful mood, because when he gives his jokes, he's very playful. He doesn't get into too much anger. He's always, always, always cracking jokes. He doesn't even, everything for him is a joke. So he reminds me of my sister. So, which is interesting. I'm curious to find out what date he's born, because he could be born in June. Who knows if there's something significant to do with a comedian or him himself. But somehow there is a Black comedian that is going to be connecting to me. I can feel it. And it came through as Michael Blackson's energy this time. And so he decided, so I said to him, I said, oh, so you're here with me? And I said, all this time I've been trying to get your attention also, which is not true in the physical world, but this is what I was saying in the dream. And I told him, I said, and I've been trying to get your attention so we can work together, is what I said to him. So I said, but now that I'm here and I'm having, all these people here, I said, you might as well join me. And, it's like I was trying to tell him to, trying to get him first to take a picture and stuff like that. But there was just so much distraction because next thing you know, there was a group of women. They were from another country in Africa, and they decided to put on a dance. So then they called me on my phone, and they were like, Sharon, look, we're dancing over. You need to come over here because you know how you love to dance, right? These are women that I did not know. So I went over there, left my phone because in the dream I'm there trying to look for my phone to find my phone because I said I didn't get to take the picture with Michael Blackson. This is so crazy. So I went over to that special area, and it was nice and warm and sunny outside, and they were dancing their African dance, and then there were speakers. There were speakers that were speaking, and then next thing you know, they started to put on for the next dance to come on, and these were women that were doing like belly type dancing, and I was participating. And then there was another section of people that were selling ice cream, and it was just so awesome. And then Marcia, she showed up, and I was like, how do you know to show up? Because she was like, yeah, I heard you were having a party. And I said, wow, it's interesting how I got her to come all the way from Pennsylvania to come to this, even though I didn't know I was going to have it. Because the whole energy, it was like, I was putting on a party. It wasn't planned. And there were celebrities and other people of different backgrounds, different cultural. It was very cultural. There were Jamaican people there. There was it was so much joy. There was all different races of people that were there. And it wasn't like I had to do anything. It's like every person brought a gift of some kind to share, food, dance, and I was just so happy because everybody was together. So it's like, this is like another level, like a level up of how I'm bringing everyone together, because I know that that's one of the greatest gifts that I have. People have said this to me all the time. Friends that know me well, the ones that know me for years, they know how I can put on a good party. They know how I always bring people together. They know that I always shift the thought process with whatever anyone's experiencing. I just have a gift to get people to shift. And that rhymed, a gift to get people to shift. And so, but in this case, it was outdoors, and it was on a huge property. And it's like, it wasn't even like as if I called up Michael Blackson and say, hey, come on over here. No, he popped up. And I was like, look at how you were able to come over here and to connect with me. And now the party begins. So it's very interesting because, I feel that people believe, or they think that the awakening process means that, only people who are awake are, they come into my space. No, this is whether they're awake or not. And I feel everyone's awake. I do. I feel everyone's awake. It's just that it's going to appear to each person differently into how they perceive it, because you have to focus on your own personal path, your own personal awakening, and then allow each individual person to connect intermittently as we go along, because it's not going to be all at once that everyone's going to be talking the same language as we are, because the overall soul, the entire encompass of this consciousness is awakening itself through each individual person, and is flowing through us in different stages. And the stages where each person's at, you may end up pulling away from parts of that consciousness in order to focus on the part of itself that's awakening. The other aspect of the self that is appearing as if it's not awakened, because it has to play its role as against the part of what you may look at as against me, so that way it can get to recognize itself where it's at. And this is how it flows in intervals. So each person is coming in as different aspects. So some may joke about it, okay, and some may be serious about it. Some may take offense for people who are joking about it, and some people may take offense. I'm talking about the virus that's going around, or the virus that they're talking about, and however it's perceived. And so as we go through stages of this awakening, I really feel like what Spirit is reminding me and showing me with this dream is how the new earth is going to appear, how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. This is what the Garden of Eden is like. The Garden of Eden, the return of the Garden of Eden is where there's the flowers are blooming brightly. We're in joy. We're dancing. We're eating. We're having fun. We're relaxed. We're not judging one another. We're cohabitating, and whether we're celebrity, whether we're, no one is in fear. And I know that I'm like the pinnacle point to how I know what it takes to bring it together. I don't focus on, oh, it needs to look this way, it needs to be this way in order for us to be in that unity consciousness. So I really feel like the isolation of what's occurring, at some point, we're going to hit that pinnacle point where we come back together in unity, and it comes as an element of surprise in how the world will start to see and understand and know itself on all levels, whether it's a 3D level, 4D level, 5D level. And as we work our way through each and every instance of self and understanding self, and how we awaken to the parts of the self that's in the subconsciousness, consciousness, and superconsciousness, as it moves together through all the elements and changes and planetary, and how we're responding planetary, that we get to understand the expansion of this consciousness, and that creates a new world. And we're giving birth to ourselves and humanity, Mother Gaia, in stages and elements. So, and again, this is where the new earth is representing fullness of joy, fullness of joy, fullness of joy. And I know what it feels like to not only live the fullness of joy, to feel it and to experience it. And that's what I know is being shown to me in this dream, and I'm in gratitude. And so it is.